So it's pretty exciting what the Pawnee's doing, talking about gearing up for larger scale production. With Intertribal Ag Council, over the last 5 or 6 years, I've seen a lot of tribes try to go from small scale gardening, which I would usually quantify as like somebody with a standard city lot, a small, maybe 40-foot rows, maybe 10 or 20 of them. That's a pretty small garden. Basically like no more than like 80 feet by 80 feet. So like a 60 foot by 60 foot. That's going to be unattainable for most city dwellers. Well, we're not really city dwellers out here. So sometimes our gardens are like as much as 3 acres. Right now on the way up here, I see a bunch of dead garden space and a lot of okra. I mean, that's usually what you're seeing in Oklahoma. What I've seen over this last 5 years with the tribes trying to gear up from small scale gardening to going to farm is that they try to do it the same way as gardening, and it's really a systematic approach. It's pretty cookbook. Gardening is kind of philosophical, and everybody's going to do it a little different. What one person's going to tell you is going to be maybe applicable if they have the same soil type and everything where you're at, and the same crop types. There's so many variables. The concept of seed provenance is real important for us. So like in the development of our ancestral seed, going from a gardening program into a large-scale commercial program, having seed that's been grown there and grown in large quantities for really good genetic viability is important. When we try to gear up or increase the scale, we'll often see like failure in the first couple of years because you'll have a variable crop height or tolerance to drought, or so a lot of genetics up front can be a limiting factor to go into larger scale for production. So kind of like in the list of potential failures or the barriers to scaling up, that would be one of them. Another one would be like getting real excited on the seed company or the seed websites and ordering like one of everything. I see that often too, that we're going to grow 12 different types of tomatoes, we're going to grow peppers, and we're going to grow squash, and we're going to grow lettuce, and we're going to grow all these things. And so I use this as we'll pull this back up here in a minute to look at things. So this is your basic warm season plants that I've put this together from a combination of OSUs, very limited. I wonder if there's any way. I just saw that that's really skewed. That's not going to throw us off too bad, is it? We can deal with trapezoids, I guess is what we call that. But I put this together off of OSU's extension documents that haven't been updated since the 80s. There's not a huge, as y'all probably well know, there's not a big push for vegetable production in the state. There's not a lot of discussion around it at the university level or more of an official level, whereas there is for cattle and commodity crops. There'll be increasingly more for Oklahoma. In fact, we were basically like California before California because we've got irrigation, we've got the soil, we've got a really long growing season. Up here, it would be like 212 days, or a little over 200 days, depending on if you use row cover, what crops you're growing. If you're going to grow any of the cold crops in the winter, you can and do a cold crop winter spring garden. Then you can get a longer growing season essentially. These things are really useful. What I found back to with tribes and where they failed is they try to reinvent the wheel. Is kind of where I was going with this. OSU's extension documents are pretty limited, but if we go right across the state and look at other similar climates, similar growing seasons, we can pull from a wide range of extension documents. And so I try to incorporate a lot of that. There's a lot of North Carolina in here. There's a lot of just the last 20 years of experience with vegetable crops that I put in, and it's an Excel file that won't die. I seem to always find more work I can do on it. So this is your conventional crop lineup with maybe a few oddballs. So like Celery, if we see, I've broken it out by family for a very specific reason, because this is science. And so in not reinventing the wheel, we know that certain plant species that we're going to be planting for vegetable gardens are going to be susceptible to plant pests. And if we can break them out by plant family, then we can really start to look at management strategies and dig deeper into the body of work that's already done. Celery it's basically celery that's been selected over several hundred years, maybe 1,000 years. I'm not really sure about celery, but probably thousands of years for a large tuberous crop. So as opposed to eating the top for celery. Celery's really nice, and you can cut it in the fall when you harvest this giant knobby tuber and put it like in a root cellar, and the actual will cover them. They'll leave them in sand and then uncover them and cement them to some light, and they'll grow greens for the winter. It's kind of an interesting plant, but there's plenty of tangents to get off on. What we do know about the plant families is that as we rotate our crops, we don't want to plant carrots in the same place that we had celery. We want to, and we don't want to, oftentimes when we're in the middle of the garden, we're working on, 36-inch or 48-inch spacing. And so if we had celery on this corner of the garden, we're going to want to put it in the other corner of the garden. So this is another major thing that I see that's overlooked all the time. It gets really overwhelming. Let me pull up. I think that this is, you can see that this is a combined schedule of, let's pull this up. Well, this is the data that's driving this. And we'll look at the data real quickly. So we'll just look at tomatillo. I've come through and worked most of these dates. Some of them need some adjustment. If y'all see anything way off, it's just because I'm still working on it. Or missed it. So tomatillo, so in the greenhouse, if we're doing a commercial vegetable production system, there's no question at all that we're gonna have a greenhouse. And there's a lot of different types of greenhouses. So we're gonna wanna have a propagation greenhouse. A lot of these things that I'm discussing, because I don't know what scale you're growing at, it doesn't matter. They're all applicable. So we can do a micro commercial version scale and take our vegetable garden up to what do we call it, micro farm. is essentially all we'd be doing here is applying the same principles from commercial production to a micro scale. And so which could be a great benefit. Some micro scale vegetable producers can make $60,000, $80,000 on an acre of ground. Definitely in Oklahoma, a few acres can make $60,000, $80,000. And now we're talking about a salary replacer or a sustainable income in a place a lot like mine where there's nothing else around, where you have to, kind of hustle, the old Wild West way. But, so back to tomatillos. In our greenhouse system that's set up for propagation, we're going to have heated trays. So we're going to have heated tables. There's going to be automated water. It's going to have way to control the temperature, everything that a greenhouse would have. And we're going to start those at a certain date. Well, there's a lot of things that we're going to start before tomatillos. So I've created a gnat. It's a gat or a gnat. I don't know. Do y'all know if I was only introduced to the concept, a GAT chart or NAT chart. I call it a NAT chart because it's GNATT. So anyways, we're going to start those in the greenhouse, and that needs to happen at a certain date so they're ready to be put in the ground, ready to transplant out. And we're going to do that in waves, okay? Because another major thing that we're overlooking when we go from garden, where we plant like one crop of sweet corn or a crop of potatoes and store them or freeze them, is when you enter into a market system, you need fresh product weekly. I mean, we're talking weekly for most market systems. Whether or not you're a commercial producer and you're loading pallets of boxed tomatoes onto a transportation vehicle, or you're taking baskets of tomatoes to your local farmer's market, you're going to usually have a weekly schedule for harvest. So we're going to have a weekly schedule for planting. And so these dates represent, so in Tomatillo, the 15th of February is the first day we're going to put seed into a flat of vegetables and put it in the greenhouse. And then after that, every week we're going to do another round of tomatillos. Tomatillos is a bad example. But let's say tomatoes, which are very similar. Should have picked tomatoes. Okay, so tomatoes, we'll put a flat of tomatoes in starting 15th of February, so they'll be ready for sow transplant, which starts on April 15th. And we're going to continue to sow transplant weekly for a month. So we have different crops popping off at the same time. Really easy concept. It's just like kind of like cover crop and moving the crops in a conventional commodity system, but like a lot more is going on. And so if we start, if we have this greenhouse, we start our fields and we transplant these things, let's go up to some of the earlier crops. Well, so amaranth greens, that's another warm season plant. Auroch is an obscure thing, strawberry spinach. But they're in there for a reason, because if you're doing farmers market stuff and you have summer squash, red tomatoes, jalapenos, and regular potatoes, white potatoes, red potatoes, and okra, then you're going to have the exact same thing that everybody else at the market has. So you want a competitive edge. So if you have like a little bit of strawberry spinach or something crazy, it may draw them over, and so you're going to integrate different crops and try it out. So you can kind of develop your own farm stand and your own image. There was a gal at the Stillwater market that had the best peppers, and that's all she did. She specialized in peppers. I can't remember her name, but her and her husband also made pico de gallo and salsa, and it was amazing. It gives me goosebumps thinking about it. I used to take the pico de gallo and just dump it into, we'd cure some fish and lemon and lime juice, for ceviche, yeah. And then just dump that pico de gallo, because it was like the magic mix for the ceviche. It was far better than me chopping up a bunch of stuff. Had just the right amount of cilantro. So anyways, so we got these, y'all get the idea. We're gonna have planting dates that are gonna start basically mid-January, and is when we're gonna be in the greenhouse. So if you're a market gardener, you get from about the 15th of December to the 15th of January off. If you're trying to grow, all the things, all the bounty that we see at the farmers markets, like in Tulsa or the city or Norman or Stillwater, that's what we're going to do. In rural communities, I often see crookneck squash, truck gardens. So we can differentiate those too. So now we've talked about how a garden is a smaller scale. That same garden could be a micro farm, but those are two different concepts. And they're largely different from the commodity production scheme. A commodity production schema that's growing tomatoes is going to have 300 acres of tomatoes, and they're going to have a $250,000 to $500,000 machine and a crew of about 20 people. And this thing goes through, it harvests 12 feet of vegetables at a time, and on the back of it is a factory. And so you've got like a multi-level factory. So you'll actually have like ladders and like the people will be grading the tomatoes, and then scooting them down, and then there'll be another level of people that are boxing the tomatoes right there in the field as it's going forward. And it's getting loaded onto another truck that's running them to the production facility. So that's a whole nother level. If you're doing market gardening and you're trying to do everything, which we see a lot of that at the farmer's market. I mean, they've got everything. Beets and radishes and carrots and rutabaga and lettuce and tomatoes, hothouse tomatoes, and they're doing everything. So they're generalists, and they're drawing in their market by providing everything to their tight client base. and they're doing a lot of work. They're working, pretty much all year. Let's go down here because it's a little more illustrative. You can see that's why I have the garden sow, transplant, and harvest broken out into 3 different sections on the snap chart. We'll go down to the visual. And so this is for everything. This will be like if you were like, oh goodness. If you were like, I'm gonna grow everything, I'm gonna be a grocery store. This is what it would look like. And like I said, some of these dates aren't right, but they're all pretty accurate. And so you see that like we could flesh out the blue lines are the sow in the greenhouse. The brown lines are the planting, and the greens the harvest. And so we're going to be busy for the whole year. What's best going into, and this is I'm going to keep going back to that, like what I've seen not work. This is hard to make work. It's really difficult. I've talked with folks here about that, and we wouldn't do all this, and this includes fall planting and spring planting of a lot of things, and some just half a dozen specialized crops. I've broken it out into spring and late winter, which is a lot more manageable. So here's there we go. I can't pull the top date out because it's a graphic, but you see that we're still trying to grow everything, but this is spring. Now everything's not going to do well in any one particular site. So no matter, like here, y'all are going to have an advantage to grow these things, whereas where I'm at with sandy loam soil and increased precipitation and growing season, I'm going to be able to grow other things. And so, the transition from going to gardening to a larger scale operation for the tribe or gardener or a potential micro farmer in the room is determining what's going to grow well here and what's worth our time and effort. Because some of these things have a pretty significant harvest to them, like beans, for instance. Like, can we sell beans in just a pod, or do we need to sell? Are we going to sell them dry? And then getting into value added and all that stuff. We'll touch on a little bit of that. It'll be a whole nother talk. Let's look at this list is also probably not very, it's not familiar to everyone. So even if we pick out something like arugula, you can't go to either the coast and have a sandwich without arugula on it. It's really hip right now. They put arugula on everything. It's ridiculous. So sometimes there'll be this much arugula and this much sandwich. It's delicious. I love it. It's like a real spicy green. We don't eat a lot of that here. Mitsuwana, it's a Japanese mustard. The reason it's on this list is because it's a heavy producer. It's among the mustard greens that work in Oklahoma. That is a really good one. It's a smaller, lighter, delicate mustard green, so it's not like like the collard greens that we think of. So it also kind of can serve the role of like a lettuce and a mustard. So it doesn't have to be like super cooked. I shouldn't have Walmart or watermelon and cantaloupe on this list. So clearly this Excel file doesn't work. Work in progress. I started a new list last night and was like, oh God, it's like I need this other page so I can really get a view at the heart of this. It's like trying to see the matrix or something. Okay, we're on the spring. Okay, that's what it is. This needs to go away. I need to change the title. I also realized that I'm trying to do what OSU did and break it out into a spring and a cool and a warm season garden. So there's all these, how do you split it up? And so if you're doing an intensive market garden, you don't have a cool little warm season garden. You have a year-round garden. So there's some really good things that y'all need to read. And I'm just going to give you a list because I'm terrible about follow-up and email. But Elliot Coleman is anything that he's written is what y'all, like the folks that are going to be part of this, of taking any operation to the next step. If y'all want to do more than just your regular garden, a few crops a year, Elliot Coleman is one of them. And then one of probably the most poignant modern writers, Jean Martin Frontier, and he's a Canadian. And you'll see really quickly, you'll see a theme with the folks that are doing this at a commercial scale that are making these, $60,000, $80,000 an acre. They're in Vermont or Canada for a reason. They've got a mellowed climate from being at the ocean, so they grow a lot of greens. They make almost all of their money on greens, and almost any microfarm operation is going to make most of their greens on tomatoes and lettuce. That's just the way it is. The reason we grow the other stuff is because it brings in money too, and you can grow them in between those things. So most people that are hip to that grow tomatoes and lettuce. And do it hydroponically now, but that's a whole nother story. So let's pull up, so we've got a lot of stuff going on here. I broke out a species list just because I'm a plant guy, and it helped me break it out in family and everything else. But you can see we've got quite a few different species here. So the celery, well, how many types of celery are there? I have no idea. There's a lot. That's a horrible question. Every one of these, may have 20 popular varieties, depending on where you're at. And what we're growing as celery for seed here in the U.S. is different than what is being grown overseas. So their celery may even look a little fundamentally different. And they'll have a lot of different varieties. And then there's some famous varieties within each of these types of vegetables too that are going to sell better. And maybe they'll grow really well here, maybe they won't. So there's a lot of there's years of knowledge that we've lost to not having second generation micro farmers or market farmers. So we've gardened, and we go buy our seed every year, and we plant a small plot or some of the safe seed, and that's what this group's more about. But we lose a lot of that, like, oh, this grows really well here in a wet year. And so we're looking at, this is going to be a wet year, so we're going to plant black creme tomatoes this year, because they're going to outcompete our Abe Lincolns or some of the other types. Let's see. I can get lost in the sauce on this. So I got the master. This one's a little easier for me to manage, but I haven't been able to figure out how to code the color. It'll be different on that. Let's see. And I think I pulled out, seems like I did just regular stuff on a few of these. Okay, yeah, this is some more conventional crops. I took like the Orac and the weird stuff off. And I will get a copy of this through the network, through Deb. I can print this out as a PDF, and I made them where they'll fit nicely. And it would just serve as a basic guide. I've got a lot, it's a cleaned up Excel file, and maybe we'll even get y'all see how to work on the dates. Because the whole point of this was the, I hate for this to be like the theme of the talk. I'm always like I'm not like pessimistic and cynical, but I see a lot of potential failures, and so I created this so we can get this off to farm managers that are going with the tribe, so they can see the magnitude of growing everything, and then go through and really pick what they want. And I've set it up where we can delete lines of things that we're never going to grow, like Orac. It's been on my target for years. I've still never grown it. But let's see. Let's pull up. So Excel files are fun. Oh no. Okay, we'll pull this up. So monthly. This is what I'm in an attempt to present the data more articulately. I'm just going to pull it out by month. I started this yesterday. It didn't get anywhere close. But just deleting the things that we wouldn't plant, so we can have kind of a monthly schedule. That because for a micro farmer, you're thinking weekly or daily. If you look at let's see, where's my master? This is the one I work on, and so I've got this where I can display the week that you're planting. So like if we change that to 21, it'll change this, so we can, so we can actually keep up with this, and what I'm gonna tie this into where it just pulls up automatically for like a week ago and then weeks on, so you know what you're planning and when, like, so you can make task sheets, because what you quickly run into is you're gonna have, you need a greenhouse specialist, you need a greenhouse manager that is going to be growing transplants throughout the year, and you're going to have people that are going to be transplanting those, and then you're going to have the harvesting crew, and you're going to have the one guy that's really good at spotting, or gal that's really good at spotting disease and pests. You're going to have a team of people. And so this is a way to kind of manage a team of people that are jumping into something that's new and exciting and really complicated. And I know a bunch of the cattle guys and commodity crop guys, and there's always this this kind of productive jest between like a cattle guy and a vegetable farmer if they're good friends. And so, like, have y'all ever heard how you can tell a cattle guy from a commodity farmer? Well, the commodity farmer's hat will be in the shape of a mailbox from looking for the subsidy checks. It's just like that, like those jokes. But for any one person doing anything, it's the most complicated thing in the world, or the simplest thing. So maybe I make this overcomplicated, but I see that we're leaving out a lot of detail, and if we have all this data and knowledge backing what we're doing, our decisions and the cost analysis, if we go back to kind of these really boring charts that the universities have probably spent hundreds of thousands of dollars and hundreds of man hours on, very important, that we don't have to do. We can pull out, they've got optimum temperature, soil range, days to harvest, methods of planting. These are pretty generalized, but cedar plant yield per 100-foot row, quantity need per person, that's a little less, that's more in the nutrition, which is important to us too, but we can easily break out a calculator and go, okay, we're gonna plant 100 row of carrots. This is gonna occupy prime space, X number of row feet for these many days, and it has the potential of making us 5 to 100 pounds. And as we grow 10 years from now, if we're taking data, then we'll know that it's really gonna yield somewhere between 70 and 80 pounds, because we'll hone in on that. But this is what we're missing out on. We often go from that garden scale right into farming scale. We throw somebody that's really good at growing crops and that's really passionate about it into a whole other world of cultivation, and usually sorry, that's embarrassing. One person that never calls me. And we destroy them. That person and all their passion and their love for it, we now turn it into a job instead of a hobby or something that lifestyle. I call it. It's more, it's a lifestyle. I ran into Zach Ducheneau and Ross Racine for IC, and I just started working for them, and I didn't even know I really had a job until they sent me a laptop and a paycheck. And because I talked to these guys over the phone, they were in South Dakota, and they're like, yeah, we're going to do this thing, and I had no idea what I was signing up for, but I went out to meet them, and I forgot my hiking boots. I don't wear cowboy boots. They think everyone should wear cowboy boots and a cowboy hat, but that's another story. And I walked in a pair of Teva sandals, and I won't tell you what Ross said up front, but there was it wasn't too terribly bad. Some reference to hippie, but I just told him I was at the university too long. It's way relaxed there. And I told them that I've been around cattle all my life, but it just wasn't my plight. That I'm a vegetable guy. My great grandparents were migratory workers, and so they always had everything. They had old McDonald farms. They had like cattle and sheep and goats and geese and a lot of vegetables. So I kind of grew up around it. We always had a big vegetable farm, but it's like in our blood, some of us, which is another very important thing to write down if we're a tribe trying to develop a tribal operation. Because you need to find somebody that it's in their blood. Because they're going to be out here on the weekend, they're going to be here during the holidays. If irrigation line busts and somebody just driving by and calls, they're going to be out there, during the middle of dinner or whatever it is. Just like cattle guys, live and breathe that. And so it's in the blood, or it's not. Okay, so do y'all have any questions about this, or have anything to say, or talk about it?
When do you start the greenhouse plants? Like, we're gonna get us a greenhouse, but when do you start those?
So we'll have a comprehensive schedule for planting dates. Because and it's really simple math, in theory. You take the packet and it says, 60 days. And you go, all right, well, if we plant this today, in 60 days, we're gonna have crops, right? Well, there's a lot of variables. So if the soil temperature is between, 50 and 60 degrees, then it's gonna be 80 days. If it's 40 degrees, it's gonna be 90 days. Or the seed's gonna rot, in the ground or whatever. If we don't have heating mats, depending on your greenhouse, we'll make some prescriptions basically, and have a planting schedule, a detailed planting schedule. And then we'll also know by our detailed planting schedule what we do in the fall, because all this is planned out in the fall for spring planting. Right now, you're planting your next year. And so we'll know how many flats we're going to produce, because in a flat you've got 32s, so 32 is a standard flat. You're going to do, or if you're doing plugs, you're going to have 100, so it depends on what your flat is. But you would literally go, okay, we're going to transplant these at this date. In a greenhouse, we've got a lot more control. We can bring that soil up to optimal temperature. We can get a real rapid germination, and we want to get those transplants out when they're optimized. I'm sure y'all have seen tomato transplants that are like this tall. And then what do? We lay them on the side, or we dig a giant hole, or just mucks things up. Like that little mistake could cost production a couple weeks of productivity. Because now if you have to dig them a deeper hole and pull all the leaves off, you've invested in man hours. So we're really getting down to the, if we're doing it for money, now it's stocks and bonds, it's man hours and dollars and cents. But the general answer would be in January, February. So if you're going to do another variable, that all my answers are going to be it depends, by the way. that's the answer. And that's kind of the point. Maybe that's the name of the talk. It depends. But, we had an ecology professor in undergrad that was his answer to everything, so we got him a thing it depends at the end of the year. That's funny. But yeah, if we're planting tomatoes in the open ground, and you know that you can plant on March 15th, which is really early for up here. Usually we're going to do March 20th plus, or maybe even April 15th, because we'll have another freeze because it's Oklahoma. But if we have road cover, then we can stick them in the ground. I would say March 20th would be kind of sketchy up here. I can do March 15th where I'm at, and then there's some things you can do if it is gonna freeze. You can go out and hose everything down. That'll usually, because we're really talking about, it may be hitting 32 March 15th, but it's only hitting 32 for an hour or two. And so the temperature variability changes as the seasonality. Like, when we watch the news, we see it's going to be 98 degrees. Well, is that 98 degrees for 10 hours or 1 hour? That's a big difference. So,
Well, I was first off glad to hear you talk about having a greenhouse. I actually knocked out a set of windows, 3 windows, and then put in a giant bay window. And so that's kind of my mini greenhouse. But when I'm on schedule, I usually start all my plants January 1, inside, and it's cool there. And then by the time I get to planting, like tomatoes, if they are tall and spindly, And I usually run fans in there to give them exercise, get them stronger. But when I go to plant them, I'll dig them and I'll lay them down halfway and then just have a little bit stick out, like half of the plant. Because then the stalk itself will start rooting. And then plus, in the springtime, we get all those crazy winds. And they'll do their worst, you know, so it's kind of good to keep that in mind when you do go to plant them. Are they wind protected somewhat?
And that works really good for small scale planting. I mean, then you don't have to worry as much about timing, and because we lose a lot of control once we step out of the greenhouse. Let me push this so it keeps.
So, Stephen, maybe you're going to cover it, but you were mentioning succession plantings,
Yeah.
especially in the greenhouse, but do very many people in Oklahoma do corn succession plantings?
Yeah, a lot of the people like so we growing sweet corn on the farm is like an old pastime for rural America. And so usually you got great grandpa's corn planter. We don't use that but once a year now because we got the big tractors, but they'll plant corn out, and I know people that do. And so the idea would be like, if we're gonna grow 100% corn, let's say it's an acre, then we're gonna have to sell 100% corn in the next day or two. And so we're gonna sell X volume of corn, but if we break it out into 8 or 10 weeks, depending on the season, we can start planting. Well, okay, so the sweet corn, that seed, sometimes I think it's a lot less important about what people say, and it's what they're saying. I don't know what, the topics, we gain so much intrinsic out of just having conversations. But because I would have never even thought about this, but the sweet corn, that's an antifungal coated corn, so we can plant that early. Ancestral corn we're going to plant later, so we're going to have a longer planting schedule, and we're going to be removing, maybe 1/10 of that corn because we're going to plant every week. And ideally, if we're planting corn, we're going to be harvesting 1/10 of that acre worth of lettuce or something that we can sell, because there's two main reasons to do this, and the number one is money. So if we always have something growing that has a crop value in that space, we're making more money, but we're also out-competing weeds and other things that are just waiting. They're in the weed cloud, in the seed cloud. So there's always going to be weeds in Oklahoma. I've given up. It's always going to be weeds. We cannot grow in a particular area for a length of time and there won't be weeds. There'll just be less weeds maybe for if we get the seeds out. But if you start growing lettuce, start your transplants January, and they're out there mid-February, and now you got lettuce plants and you weed a few mustard plants, and that lettuce is really popping and sucking the water and the nutrients up and shading everything out. And then you remove that lettuce and cultivate it and plant it to corn. You basically have 2 weeks past March 15th before everything goes from nice cultivated soil to weeds. It's 2 weeks. And they're like little adorable things at first, and then they're like this big in another week. And so the idea behind the mechanization is, your classic plow and dragging steel through the ground, is we get our corn crop or whatever crop is in the ground, and then in 2 weeks it's already up because we planted it during optimum soil conditions. I mean, they've got this thing down. They've got charts and graphs for when you plant corn. The date. This year you're planting this date to get the maximum yield. And so we're putting them into ideal soil conditions. That plant grows up, and then we can pull cultivators over that crop if we have it in nice rows. So getting back to that systematic approach, growing corn. I've got a few really interesting. We'll get off of this Excel chart. Close that out.
How many days is your typical corn, sweet corn?
Sweet corn, I think it's a 90-day, 110-day for sweet corn. It's a pretty short, relative to our ancestral stuff.
Yeah, that's a long time compared to what we
Yeah,
have.
oh, well, so that's another valid. I'm a southeasterner, and so we grow the dink corns that have the longest growing season, and y'all would have had more of the flint and the flower corn. So yeah, but yeah, the 80 days, I think, 80 to 100 days. It just depends on the varieties. They've got a lot of varieties. This is a cool photo. It's just, this is in I have my place. I'm too big to be a garden and too small to be a farm. And annually for the last, I guess, 4 years now, we've had around 100 kids, tribal youth from all over the country, come and take a look at my wheat patch. All right, let me pull this up. So I just pulled, oh, that was a tangent. Let's pull this up. This is something that we've all seen if you've been ran through the university meat grinder. This is Oklahoma data with 5-year tendencies, and we can see that we have seasonal variability. So I just wanted everybody to get a look at this. I had never seen it because I'm always talking about it. But you can see we're in a wet cycle now, which means we'll soon be in another dry cycle. And it may or may not mean anything to y'all, but it's always exciting for me to be in a wet cycle. I joked with some of my friends getting out of grad school that we'd be perfect time to start farming because we'll be leaving a dry. But I don't know. It's Oklahoma, but we on average have more precipitation right now than we would otherwise. So I'll just pull these up one at a time. I started the PowerPoint, but I just hate them. Can't pull them all at once. We'll just go through them as they come. So when I'm doing a sit down with the tribe that's really thinking about doing large scale farming, we first figure out what they're going to grow. So or a farmer or a micro farmer. So I can't really differentiate between the systematic approach is the same. It's scalable. That's the point of it. It's scalability and sustainability. A lot of my definition would be like something that you can do, at 1/10 scale, or take it up, and it still makes sense. And so that's what I try to shoot for when I'm talking about a systematic approach. Because gardening and hand harvesting corn is not scalable anymore, because we're all doing different things. Now we're firemen and policemen and professors and cooks and all. So we can't all get together for the harvest. So scalability is really important to do to have the right equipment, the right plan, and the right amount of crew. But what I do is I go through when we're at the initial stage, when we're really saying, okay, we're going to do this. We're going to build greenhouses. We're buying equipment. Let's go. Just start pulling up data. We've got tons of data in Oklahoma. We've got a live mesonet station somewhere very near here that gives us a real-time feed on soil temperature, soil moisture, precipitation, wind speed, soil temperature at this depth, at that depth, and so I pulled some of those up. So here's relative humidity, and so this one is Pawnee. So that's your average humidity throughout the year, which is an important thing to know. If we were going to do tomato production, then we would look at the humidity and maybe when we're first germinating or for pest potential. So that may be another thing that we'd look at. Average wind speed, pretty important. We definitely know that. I think this is this was the correct one. That's not correct. That was because I was just fly fishing and I got bored and pulled up an image. So their average humidity here is very low. Microbial activity is another thing that we really started talking about. I just do this thing because it's so important, and it was going to be a series of slides, but I have no idea how long I've been talking or how long I'm supposed to talk or anything, so because I just talk. But anyways, we can see a definitive. This is from a pretty long-term study that they were looking at traditional crop production, and so they found that obviously we can see that if we till where we're going to put the corn, we're going to just keep our microbial activity minimal. And corn's hypertrophic, and it really loves an association with the van fungi, the symbiotic fungus that grows with the corn. Roots grow, and the fungi grows within the roots, kind of around the root cells, and creates this like partnership. And so the fungi is really important when you're trying to get at low plant water availability. That'd be a good, I think I've got one of those in here. See if we can, no, I didn't put it in here. So basically, yeah, soil particles, so just imagine something chunky like a piece of cereal or something in the soup, in like a bowl of cereal. And the plant roots are in there, and they can only, they have to like get inside the particle or in the structure of the cereal to get the nitrogen and phosphorus out. And so they're in this soil solution, that would be the milk. That's my ridiculous analogy. But their root can only get so far into that chunk of soil, whereas the van fungi, that beneficial fungi, it has a smaller diameter root. It can really penetrate in there, and they exude organic acids and do all kinds of groovy stuff. And so then they can grab a hold of the phosphorus, and they exchange it for the plant for photosynthate, which is sugar water. So they're like, here corn, here's some phosphorus, and they give them a little photosynthate, which they're leaky anyways. They're always leaking that stuff. Like plants are real leaky. And so this association develops more strongly in some plants than others. In corn, it has a very significant impact. And so when we see a significant inoculation of that soil microbial activity, which we all hear so much about, then we see a reduced, increased efficiency all around. So the plant uses their water more efficiently. They're going to have a higher yield and pull up more micronutrients, and the plants or the vegetables will be more nutritious. So you're not going to get maybe much more yield, but you'll get more nutritious vegetables.
And so how do you prepare the soil to build up that microbial activity?
It's a systematic approach. So we need to do something. We need to do it now, and oftentimes the first things are like plowing and tilling and busting up the soil really good the first year. And there's some studies that say that may or may not be necessary, because the additive effect of increasing your microbial activity is going to be seen. So like it's kind of like taking antibiotics. Like you're already not feeling well, but you may or may not be sick. If you take antibiotics and you're not sick, it's going to just destroy your immune system. Then you're going to get sick. And so like that would be another kind of parallel mode of thought. But whether you till and plow and bust it up first, or just start a no-till system, you got to start a no-till system in the beginning. And there's various degrees of that. So no-till system would be the extremist, radical, we just throw the seed on the top and sing camp songs. But stomp them in with our tivas. But the other approach would be like maybe using like a rotary plow or something, or even disking versus plowing is a marginal increase in promoting microbial activity. It's another one of those things where, depending on the crop, potatoes we're clearly gonna, it's gonna be a highly disruptive crop, and we're gonna have there is no no-till system for potatoes. so I mean, in theory. At a commercial scale. The cover cropping is really important, maybe more important than no-till. Having something throughout the season. So planting your perennial rye in the fall with some clovers, so you've got something that's going to be the green manure in the spring. the newest approach to no-till systems. So this is like the Rondell Institute and what all the universities are getting hip to, and NRCS is promoting right now is on the front of your large tractor, because we're going to be doing this, acre scale. But just imagine a tractor. It wouldn't work on my two-wheel, but I couldn't do it once anyways. So you've got a big drum with these fins that are designed to roll and crimp what's in front of it. So you plant wheat, or not wheat, let's plant rye, forget wheat. So rye, clover, you may have some root, some sod busting radish, or whatever you've got in your cover crop that spring. Well, we're going to come back with this drum. We're going to roll over it, and it's only going to be about this tall when we roll over it, maybe this tall. And we're going to roll over it, and then right behind us we're going to have a precision seed drill. That's going to be modified a little bit. It'll have more weight on it, and so it'll precision seed drill the corn. Would be a good example of a crop that we would do with this. They're doing a lot with corn and soy right now. We can also bring in some of the micro farmers are rigging up these systems, and they're bringing in transplanters. So have y'all seen the big transplanters that sit on the back of the tractors? So it's just like a big, it's an implement. So, a 3-point attachment. You'll have anywhere from 1 seat to a dozen seats that are set in just about 6 inches above the ground. You lower the implement down, and it drops an injector wherever there's a seat, and they'll have these trays in front of them, and you pull transplants out of your flats, or they have specialized transplants usually for this, and you drop it down a tube, and so it goes through, and it's making your furrow, and it drops the plant, and it covers it over and puts a squirt of water on it. Or they do it all different ways. Some of them do like kind of an injection system. Some of them just drop it in.
Or at a small scale farm, about what kind of price are you looking at?
For getting in. Well, if we're you can do it. So farming is a lot like landscaping. All you need is a truck and a shovel, and then you're ready to go. You're doing something. But if you're going to do the BCS system, were any of y'all there to see the BCS system?
Yeah.
So that's a real popular system for micro farmers. So for about 10 or 12,000, you can get you'll have a tiller that you need, power harrow, like different implements that you need. But with the BCS is the entry level for pulling in precision seeding for getting the soil conditions where you want it. Like a rear tine tiller would be the entry point for a small scale farmer. That system we haven't talked about, but that's your classic gardening system. Everything, what are those, 14-inch width, I think they're about 14, 18 inches. So the idea is you plant a garden and you have 14-inch rows between your crop, and so you could run a tiller between them, and then you can just take a hoe and weed between your plants as you go down the line, and that works great. And it's going to take a lot of man hours, as we know. You're going to have to go out and till it, and we're killing our microbial activity, and we're spending hours weeding, and probably walking through the mud and compaction, all these other things. If you're going to go BCS, you're looking at the $10,000 range, which there's microloans for that. If you take it up another scale, you're going to have to bypass a lot of the modern 30-horse utility tractors because their tires are this wide. For one, you have this much space, but you have more tire than you have row space. So if you think about the classic tractors, they have real narrow tires for a reason. Tall, narrow tires, and they don't hardly make tractors like that. So you could get a 19. I don't know what's our first year options really.
1940s.
1940s to maybe the 70s is when it's like past that you're doing, now you need 300 acres. So you could get an old tractor, just pick through the boneyards and find some old still and get your cultipactors and your spring tooths and all your gadgets that you're going to need, and that's going to be a steep learning curve, but it's doable. Tough Built makes a tractor that is a variant of the Model G, and so that would be your next scale up from a BCS or a two-wheeled system. And then we jump into the hundreds of thousands of dollars beyond that. Buying a new John Deere for 120, 30,000, where every implement's 30, 40 grand. That's the next level. That's a heck of a, and then you need scale to justify the payments on that tractor. Because now you just bought a fleet, basically. Now you need warehouses, and you're gonna have to be able to repair it. And there's a lot of headaches that gets into that. My best recommendation for scale up, and I know a farmer that he bought a rusty old tractor and just traveled the countryside and met with a bunch of old men and found these boneyards, for old tractor parts and cobbled something together, and luckily did it like in a year. He had to retrofit his own toolbars and get it all working. And he runs 3 acres, and he makes, with that system, he's making a lot less money because it's not micro intensive like a micro farm would be. So you got a lot of, his rows are real wide, and he's getting less vegetable out of the same space as you would with like a BCS system. But he probably did it for about 10,000. He bought a tiller, and that's his only modern piece of equipment, and he pulls steel through the ground and grows everything. And he's making 20, 30,000 an acre doing that. So it's pretty good money.
Okay, so it's August the 18th.
Mm-hmm.
For planting now, for fall garden, what would you recommend?
Well, any of your cold crops are going to be the way to go. We can pull that Excel file back up. I know that we want to plant pumpkins. We can do pumpkins. So pumpkins are a high-end crop for Oklahoma. So it's going to be that's your classic truck garden crop too. There's 2 different kinds of pumpkins. There's the jack-o'-lanterns that are the hollow ones, and then the eating pumpkins, and so the winter squash is what we just call them. Those, they won't grow to maturity. They won't completely reach their max potential if we plant them right now, but we will grow a crop. It'll just be smaller. The only reason we wouldn't want to do that is if we were in a survivalist mode and growing for food, because those pumpkins won't have the same longevity. When you grow a pumpkin crop to finish, the plant cures on the vine, and there's something that happens, whereas that plant will resist rot. It's the conversion to simple sugars. So if y'all have ever had a pumpkin that's been grown and dried in the field, it's going to be a lot sweeter than when you buy at the grocery store for that reason. Just like the tomatoes are picked kind of green for shippability. But pumpkin people, they do it because of the American holidays. So yeah, we can plant a pumpkin crop. I think it'd be a really cool opportunity to plant a bunch of stuff we're not used to. So like kale, I know that kale's hit now. We all eat kale, right? Twice, no. But we should try it. You can cook it just like classic southern mustard greens. So my favorite way to cook kale is I cook up a lot of chorizo, chop up the kale pretty good, throw it in with the chorizo and toss it, and that's delicious. Then it's just like mustard greens. And so, yeah, sometimes there has to be meat on the vegetable for me to eat it. But I eat a lot of vegetables. And, so kale would be a good one. Lettuce is definitely one that we can start flats of lettuce and transplant and still be good. What else could we grow? We could do another round of cucumbers. That should work. I've planted cantaloupe. I've got a French variety of cantaloupe that I was running late to get seed back on, and cantaloupe just doesn't taste as good in October. Like, you know, or it's, you know, you're like, okay, I got a cantaloupe and I don't want to eat it as bad as I would have in July or June. There's a lot of things that we can grow though, but it's not going to be the familiar Oklahoma garden, is what I would say. If we had tomato transplants, it would be too late. We'd get green tomatoes. If we planted corn, it'd be real edgy.
Even the 60-day?
The 60-day should be good. I mean, we've got, so let's see. I pulled up our first frost dates and everything according to this. Let's see if we can, I think it will just pop on, but if it doesn't, then we'll know for sure.
So for your first frost calculation, you're more familiar with where you live.
I pulled all the data up for here.
Okay,
Yeah.
so,
Yeah, so and Mesonet.org is where to go, and their website isn't as intuitive as I'd like it to be, but it's pretty robust. You can, so it's not it's not like Wonderground or the weather page or anything like that. Mesonet, yeah, it's an amazing resource for Oklahoman gardeners, vegetable farmers, and then
Mostly climate data, it'll have that, it won't have necessarily meteorological information.
yeah, you're gonna see the 7-day for Norman. But you're going to be able to pull up the real-time soil conditions, soil moisture, either really close to your or within. You know, I don't have one at Stratford. I've got one at Byers, one at Pauls Valley, and one at Ada. Stratford says it's just below Byers. Byers is in the middle, and so I look at the Byers one most often. And I don't know why. I mean, there's a lot of reasons we don't extrapolate data in Oklahoma, because like I may be sitting in Sandy Loam and on a prairie over here, but like, you know, a county over, it could be like rock and clay and oak forest and a lake. And so it can highly, you know, we can see large variability in soil temperature, less so, but like less significant, but like definitely air temperature, precipitation, and all that here. I guess we lost our unit. I pushed the button maybe. Well, let me just see if I've got that written down here. Because I did have more. Oh, here we go. Average soil temperature for here is around 51, 52. Average soil temperature in March, 56. Mesonet average high temperature, and these are based on the 5 out of 10 year. That's what I look at. You can do the 1 out of 10 year, but so they have various degrees of accuracy. So like the risk variability. You know, like if we put tomatoes out on the 12th, that may be our last frost date. But if we wait, so 5 out of 10 years, and I don't know if that's the exact number, but for sake of argument. But 1 out of 10 years, the frost date may be April 6th, so that buys us a week. So is it worth the risk of planting 1,000 tomato plants a week before? You know, kind of like that. And that's going to be a lot of year by year. So even though we have the data, we just use that to best inform our decisions. So did I answer the question? I lost track. But there's the. I urge everybody to get on Mesonet and kind of get familiar with that. And so you've got basically a university grade data at our fingertips. There are these little weather stations that you can get and you can plug into like Wonderground or something.
well, what I'd like to plug is for fall gardening is our eagle corn. Try to get, you know, even though you've grown your blue corn, if you'd like to get some seeds now, we'll try the fall garden and try the eagle corn since it's 60-day and we just want to get it in the milky stage. And then that way, we're halfway in our goal to be able to have a fall feast. And so that's kind of the plea for our corn. is, let's try our short season corn. And then some of these other ideas too. Rita, did you bring the seeds?
Yes.
Ah, we've got some seeds for our participants, so that you can try your fall garden. And if you don't have your fall garden prepared and you want to help out at the Elder Center, we have a lot of empty boxes. You can even claim one as your own for the moment. We'll see what we can produce for the fall. And how many, I'm just curious, how many have had a fall garden before? Well, you don't count. You have? What have you grown?
Turnips.
Nice.
Best.
Okay. That sounds
Chinese
good.
cabbage, something like that. It's cabbage.
Lettuce, cucumber, squash.
Oh,
Got
good.
the album right now. Lettuce.
Okay. Well, I've never done a fall garden. I'm usually too tired out thinking.
They're my favorite garden. It's a lot
Are
less
they?
It's
weedy.
cooler, isn't it?
Yeah.
Did you have less bug problems when you had your fall garden versus springtime?
No, turnips.
Yeah.
Okay, that's what I'm hoping for, is less.
What we grow in our spring and summer garden can largely dictate our success in our fall garden too. Like personally, I love summer squash, but I quit growing it altogether. I've just completely cut it out. I'll never grow it again. Because if I grow summer squash, those squash bugs will move on to other families. So they don't just eat the Cucurbitaceae family. So they'll move on to the mustard family. They'll move on to the tomatoes once they've decimated the mustards. And so if you can get that population down in the spring, then you can have a real successful pumpkin crop, because they're not as many. They're not due to their life cycle. They're not as mobile when you plant a pumpkin crop in July. And so to get a pumpkin crop to full fruition, to cure them out, to carry them out, you're going to plant them mid-July, and we'll get perfectly good germination in the summer. And those crops, they'll just pop up with water. You'll have a field of green in 2 weeks. I've had pumpkin germination in as little as 2 days, where I stuck a seed in the ground. 2 days later, there's a plant or rocket. But if I had planted, the summer squash or zucchini, which is a summer squash too, they're a lot less. Zucchini over summer squash is what I'll still plant zucchini, because I don't have as much bug problem. But when you're trying to do like an organic management approach to squash bugs, is till it all, torch it to the ground and till it all. That's because once you see the adults, if you've got more than an egg mass per leaf, then you're by management standards officially infestation, and you're too far gone. Nothing you do really is going to get at them. I mean, it's going to require systemic, and anything you're going to put on that crop is going to render the vegetables unpalatable. So, or not, legally not eatable. We can still eat them with all kinds of poison on them. I'm sure we have for years, but yeah, the torch them, move on. So there's I've seen some product where they've got like a wheel, and it's got a torch bar on it, and you can literally push it over like a 36-foot row of vegetables. Now, a lot of those were handmade before, and I've seen 12-foot torches on a 120-horse tractor going through fields of crops, torching them. So.
And see, what we did was we put boards down, like near the squash plants, and then when in the heat of the day, they let it go underneath the board. So you lift the board up, and then you just
Nice.
stop that.
I've gone through and grabbed the egg masses off and just stuck them in a glass bottle and put the adults in. I like that technique. That's the
They love the
best.
boards.
Some traditional ecological knowledge.
So, given our soil here, traditionally clay, would you describe
In what
lay
area?
land?
Yeah, up here in these garden
In
sites.
this garden here are clay, and
Pretty
so
clay.
as far as cover cropping, seeds, plants, which would you recommend?
The rye is really cheap. You can get a 50-pound bag of that for $70, and that would cover that garden site.
Back garden side, but didn't you say that turnips and maybe some that could go down into that light soil?
Yeah, there's some. So right now, cover crops have gotten real hip. There's a really cool video called it's hokey. I love it's called Farmers Undercover. Just a clever play on words, but they're in that video, and you can find if you Google NRCS Farmers Undercover, you'll find it's an NRCS conservationist talking about 20 years of successive work that he's done with some of the local folks, and they're doing commodity crop production, but they're doing a real robust, maybe overkill seed mix that includes some hybridized turnips and radishes, and they've got some of these mustards that are designed to basically bust through the plow board. Is that what we call it? It's the old terminology for like the hard pan, bust through the hard pan, and then they're a giant, rotting mass of organic matter. So they put a lot of organic to get. You're also trying to get kind of sprawling through this compacted soil. And so that's another reason to leave the integrity of the soil in place and not till it every year, which we may need to till. That may be what we decide here. But academically, if we leave the structure in place and we're putting cover crops in, and they're creating these straws so they can transport nutrients and moisture through to do that. But yeah, we can just look at a cover crop mix. We're going to want to put that in September. And usually broadcast is pretty sufficient, so we just take the rotary plow. So rotary plows, if we think of a tiller tilling in I guess this would be a vertical fashion. A rotary plow tills like this. I feel like Mr. Miyagi. But like the rotary plow has spikes that twist horizontally to the plane of your tilth. So it doesn't overturn the soil and destruct as much. You're leaving those micro straws and the organic material, the hyphae or the roots are allowed to stay, because roots, as they penetrate out, roots of crops, when they die, usually, like in a conventional system, when we rip them out of the ground, well, we're just lost all that organic. Well, those roots will break down and become bioavailable. Mycorrhizal fungi, they die more rapidly than plant roots, and so they're adding significant humic acid and soil building properties. But yeah, a cover crop, we'd power hard over, or traditionally we'd probably disc it, and then we put our cover crop in. And I've even gone out with a 50-pound bag and we've just loaded buckets or pails or whatever we got and just hand broadcasted annual rye, or annual rye. Perennial rye is really expensive. Annual rye is really cheap, and we can throw in in a 50-pound bag we can get maybe 5 or 10 pounds of clover. Egyptian red clover has been my best success, and then we can get some of those greens to put out there too. And do maybe like a 12 species seed mix. So if we were doing it commercially, we would have a big tractor, and then we would just come in and roll that seed mix in the spring, and right behind it pull our transplanters from tomatoes or hot season crops that we've grown in the greenhouse, or direct seed, precision seed in corn or beans or even pumpkins, like squash. Direct seed, precision seed, some of that in. Did we touch up on everything? Was this the talk y'all? Were y'all on the right talk? Was I giving the right talk?
Yeah, I was just wondering what to plant.
Yeah.
That's what I was wondering.
Wondering what? I'm sorry.
What to plant in a fall garden.
What to plant, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, typically so we're gonna start our fall plantings in July. So it's hard if you've got like some tomato plants out there and they're looking rough, but there's some green tomatoes lingering on, and you're longing for that last tomato sandwich. But usually the best course of action is to deep fry the tomatoes and pull them out because they're not gonna do anything else. The crop that's on tomato plants right now is the crop you're getting. We're not gonna have enough time in the spring for it to flower out and produce another round of tomatoes. And so usually, like unless it's just a good year, you got some shade or some kind of protection and they're really rocking. Once the daytime temperature, ideally or optimized at 76, for most plants, that's when they're gonna flower and do good fruit set and everything's great. But once the daily temperature exceeds 90 degrees, plants shut down and you're not getting any photosynthesis really whatsoever at that point so you'll get like small windows in the morning and the evening. But the reason we'll see fruit drop and flower drop and different things this time of year with some plants is because it gets too hot for them. So tomatoes, one thing that you can do if we have an early heat wave, y'all have heard like shock them or whack them with a stick. Has everybody heard that? Well, they literally, like commercially, they go and they shake the rows of tomatoes. So they have a machine, you put it on there and it like just shakes it. What it's doing is it's doing self-fertilization. So they're shaking the pollen to drop down into that flower before the daytime temperature reaches 90 degrees. And so you'll get good fruit set like in a hot spring. And so if you're I'm sure y'all have grown tomatoes where you didn't get anything. I hear it a lot. Like we grew a whole crop of tomatoes, the plants were behemoth, but we got no fruit on it whatsoever. Well, it's insect pollinators for some things it's wind pollination, but they all kind of live by that one law. And because these plant enzymes break down, the pollen breaks down. So you want to get the pollen set so they can grow down and become seed and fruit before the heat of the summer. When to plant a fall garden. Do you have a way to get to everybody
Yes,
in this
we
room?
collected everyone's contact information and emails.
Well, they're gonna harass me till I produce a PDF form of what I just showed y'all, and I need to tweak it a little bit, but I'm pretty ready to let it go. And it has planting dates, and it'll actually have, I won't give you the master list, it's this long. I'll give you the fall and the spring list for conventional crops, and then you can add on to it, and it'll show you when you need to start your greenhouse version or when to transplant. But right now, you're going to start seeing a lot of the cold crops available at Home Depot and Lowe's and places like that. A lot of those are going to do well. I've not had a lot of luck with, I would love to grow some Brussels sprouts and broccoli and things, but I've just never had a lot of luck, but it can be done. These crops are oftentimes enhanced by a frost. And so like a Brussels sprout that's had a couple of frosts on it tastes even better. Heads of cabbage, things like that could grow well. What consistently works for me for fall crops is arugula, tatsoi. I got my greens covered. I plant those every year. Those are my go-to. Tatsoi grows incredibly well in Oklahoma. Too late for any of the tomatoes, Solanaceae. You can do a round of potatoes, not sweet potatoes, I'd say. You're gonna grow sweet potatoes, but you're not gonna find slips anyway, so it doesn't matter. Lettuce, would be a go-to. You could grow it as head lettuce right now, or leaf lettuce. We should have time to make heads, and kohlrabi, kale, mustard, even collard greens. You could plant around to collard greens. We're dealing with we talked about a lot of the variables, but one variable we didn't talk about is day length. We're dealing with a shortening day length, and so some plants will accelerate when they bolt and go to flower. They're no longer. That's when they start becoming stringy and not good. So, like for instance, if I had I'll have the tatsoi and the arugula growing in December, but then they really start flowering out, and I just call it quits and wish I would have just planted ryegrass a month sooner, because I'm probably not eating that anyways. But
Stephen, what did you say on Egyptian clover?
the red clover, yeah, and you can, so y'all can go and find that seed at your local feed stores. That's where I recommend. You can get a 50-pound bag of. If you don't need a 50-pound bag of ryegrass, of annual rye, then you can get smaller bags. Don't go to Home Depot or any place like that ever for seed. My God, they're outrageously expensive. I saw if you were going to buy 50 pounds of ryegrass at Home Depot, you may pay $300 because you're going to buy them in 10-pound containers that are $20 a piece. And so go to price shop a little bit, feed store, Egyptian red clover and ryegrass. That's a go-to every year. So it doesn't have to be complicated. And then if you throw some tubers and just some cheap seed off from off the rack, get greens. Look at greens and tubers, and then you can throw those in your seed mix too, especially for small scale. That'd be a good way to do like a modernized cover crop.
Isn't the fall another good time for perennials too, the fruit bearing and nut bearing?
Yeah. So I helped a farm this year. It was in the spring, and I actually, it was a nightmare. I showed up, real good group of folks in their 70s. This is your average farmer that I deal with. Is going to be like between 50 and 70 years old. That's one to start. They've just now raised up enough money. They're retired, or they're going to start a retirement farm, and so. They were there. They were putting this farm together, 3 acres. They just got a semi-load of blackberries in. It was like late May, or blueberries, late May. They didn't have any irrigation system set up. So I spec'd out a system real fast. They went and bought it. It took us a week to install it. Worst time ever to plant anything woody is in May. You're gonna have to water it every day. And so right now, perennials, like this is when you're gonna be planting your berries and woody things. I'd say through December. Any bare root trees, bushes, things like that. The nurseries will sell them to you year round. They'll sell you a semi-load of bare root, anything in July, because this is what they have left over. Don't buy it. Wait until fall to do all your perennial stuff. Definitely. Not a good time to plant perennial artichokes. we can grow artichokes here. Well, and regular artichokes. Well, I can grow artichokes barely where I'm at, so maybe not here. But yeah, Jerusalem artichokes, I remember seeing them in Walmart for like a few years, and they just kind of fell out. That's a huge crop. Have y'all grown the sunchokes? It looks a lot like ginger, like a ginger corm or the big chunk of ginger, but it has kind of like a horse or water chestnut texture to it, and it's a traditional crop. So it's Helianthus tuberosum, sunchoke, Jerusalem artichoke, and it's a sunflower plant. It's about this tall, and you dig it up about now, and you've got all these tubers in the ground, and it comes back better from tuber than seed. And one thing that we didn't talk about, and I'm glad I just remembered it, is if you save seed from a hybrid tomato, well, I'm preaching to the choir here, this group, but if we save seed from a hybrid tomato, what do we get? A tomato, but it's not going to be the same as a hybrid tomato. So I always like to throw that out. So when we're saving seed, we definitely got to worry about purity, and that goes out the door a lot with commercial operations. So if we were to do a commercial corn operation, we're growing one variety of corn because of our seed cloud is going to be huge. Or we can maybe do We can do spatial and temporal separation for different distinct varieties, but that would be like growing, it's kind of like rolling the dice, really. If you plant a 120-day corn and a 60-day corn at the same time, it doesn't mean they're not going to flower at the same time. You have to know that corn, and but usually you're safe. If you plant 220-day corns at the same time, obviously they're going to flower really close, and then you're going to have cross-contamination. You can get around that even with the market system saving your seed, because you're going to have one variety that's going to be your go-to. And that's what I do. Like right now I grow Strawberry Crown and Galodiacines pumpkins, and that's the only pumpkin I'll ever grow for the rest of my life because I love them. They're delicious, they grow well, they get huge, and they're good keepers. And they're knobby and weird looking, and people love them. So, and then one cantaloupe that I'm not allergic to. It's something, and I can't remember, it's crazy French word. But it's like a little melon that's really delicious. It doesn't grow very well at my house, but I try to grow it every year. But yeah, right now, so ideally our fall garden's in the ground, and is growing. But Oklahoma, this isn't we got that long growing season, so up to 240 days if we're doing row crop, and depending on what we're planting in the spring and the fall. We got a really long growing season, and we can grow pumpkins and we can grow cole crops, and you can do, there's probably a giant pepper plant or something at Home Depot that you can put in a pot on your back porch still, and get a few peppers out of it. I mean, it's Oklahoma. We can do a lot, but we can't do everything really well. So there's that.
Pot planting is really a good thing to do for peppers. And we have one case in
Very
point.
productive.
We have a bell pepper plant outside our door at the Elder Center that's going on 6 years old.
Wow.
And right now it's flowering like crazy. There's probably about 30 flowers on it. But every winter, we bring it inside, and I don't know how old it's gonna get, but the stalk on it almost looks tree-like. So we're real happy with that, and that's always a really great idea. We started doing pot planting for Lynn Rice and some of the others, and because they wanted a little something on their front porch, and that's where it started for us, was then grabbing those pots and bringing them in the winter. So we're real surprised at how long the plant can last.
One thing that we ought to talk about while we're still here is we've got a short growing season left, but what are we going to do after that? And that would be the cover crop. The county barns usually will let you have as much of the straw that you want to haul off. Straw is an organic material that is full of weeds from the county barn. You're going to have a lot of weed seed come up, but it doesn't really matter, right? If we're doing a cover cropping system, it's not ideal, but we're gonna kill the weeds anyways. So one thing to really add carbon to the soil would be to spread out straw pretty thick over the winter. I mean as thick as you can put it in there, and it'll break down. It will almost all break down into the soil. We're going to lose some of that to off-gassing. It'll convert to CO2 and go into the air. Like that's what happens when you till your soil, is you have oxidation of your root, your dead insects and other things like that, and it turns into CO2 and it goes away. But with the straw, I put it on the ground, let it break down, and then work it into the spring. Go ahead and till it up. Y'all are going to have to do some tillage in the soil a little bit. If you get manure, that would be great too. Oftentimes when we bring cattle byproduct in, whether it's straw from the feed yards or the county barns or soil, we're going to be bringing in weed seed. But it's okay because we're gonna in the spring we're gonna till it up. You can cover crop cover crop your soil, put the straw on it, is what I would do. So cover crop your soil, that rye's gonna grow through there, it's gonna break that soil down, you're gonna have the moisture, the microbial activity. And then we're gonna do a light till, over it in the spring. Well, maybe, it would be the way that I do it, you know. We're all gardeners here, and we've all done it different ways, you know. But that would be one way, that we can incorporate some organic. And then if we put manure on the fall, we shouldn't have to worry about anything in the spring, any weird thing. When we're getting into commercial operations, then we start getting into withdrawal periods and a lot of other things that we got to start discussing, so timing becomes more important.
Well, so what we're doing today, then, we have Rita brought in some seeds that her and I got together. And we will be convening, I'm sure everybody probably needs a break, maybe even a lunch break. And we'll convene over at the Elder Center, see if we can put some seeds in the ground over there in our prepared boxes, and also see if you want to take some home. So we'll look forward to meeting everybody in what, let's say an hour? 1 o'clock? Okay. All right, so if there's any other questions, you know, Steve will be here. He will also be back. He watches the weather reports, and we tried like heck to plan where he could come over and kind of redo the taro garden, but of course with all this rain, we weren't able to do Plan A. So we're hoping that we can get back on track next week, and he can show a different type of machinery other than the VSC.
Well, I'm going to bring the BCS, but I've got a power harrow and a rotary plow right now, and so what a rotary plow would do, and I don't think we had it last time. So we just pulled still to the ground last time for the garden setup. So we tilled everything, and then we set a toolbar, and we had 2 discs that were set opposite 45-degree angles, and we just pulled it through to set a 31-inch bed essentially. And so it was a real mechanical way to do that. And then we I've got a Jane seeder. It's a precision seeder. They're really nice and worth the money if you're like me and don't have much time when I get out and plant. So if you're trying to plant everything right now real fast, they're $1,000 essentially. It's my hobby, so it was worth it to me. There's a lot of other types of planters out there that are much more attainable for smaller scale operations. But we ran the Jing seeder through there, and then it was pretty well done. With the rotary plow, we can run that machine, and it'll mechanically turn soil and throw it on to one side, and then we go down the other side, so we can set a higher bed, which is really useful for things like potatoes, or Oklahoma, where we're inundated under water in the spring and fall. So it was a system that I started utilizing, because now you've created a dry basin, because you can literally raise these beds 18 inches off the ground. And so you've created a dry basin around, so you can capture more precipitation. You've also, that soil being raised above the ground is going to heat up at an accelerated rate, so you're going to get a faster seed germination rate. And I think that's where the main benefits are, because in the spring you get everything set to seed, and then the weeds grow and it rains, and you're like, well, it's not good to get out there and compact the soil, but it's also not good to have 3-foot pigweed. So that's a good system. So I'll be bringing both of those, the Jing seeder and still in case we need it, and we'll get out there and do it. The rotary plow, we did a demonstration. I guess it was like July 20th, Joe and I, and it was an experiment. I just got the rotary plow, and it took a little over 2 weeks before the grass started growing up in there. And the grass grew, there's less grass and it's not growing as fast as the area that we tilled next to it. And it's in the same soil, same crop strategy, everything. So real small little case study, but it made a significant difference. And it lays a beautiful precision seed bed down that is exactly 31 inches wide. You've heard me say 31 inches a couple of times because you have to figure out your cropping strategy when you're doing mechanized work. And so it gives, not only does it give you more purpose to the area, but instead of like a 1 acre garden that you're just kind of lost in the weeds in, now you've got defined rows and a mechanized approach to go through and take some of those weeds down. And so, the BCS units, everything, thank God, luckily from like Elliott Coleman and folks like that, the manufacturers have produced a nice 31-inch bed system with about an 8-inch between beds. And so you can do 4 rows, 5 or 8 rows in that 31-inch system if you're going to do microgreens. We can hook up this Jane seeder and run precision seeding of lettuce or whatever, and then you have zero competition. So that's another cultivation technique.
And Stephen, in case there are some that aren't able to return back at 1 o'clock, you might just kind of tease them for whenever another project that we're going to be working on is the making of the lye.
Oh yeah.
And share with them.
Okay, yeah. So lye. It's really straightforward. And the southeastern tribes, we make a lot of the, like hominy essentially is the best example, but we make tomfala and pashofa, and the Creeks, they have oh gosh, I'm drawing a blank altogether now. Anyways, we use a post oak and blackjack combination to make the strongest lye. So the trick is we're going to burn wood. It's really simple. We're going to burn wood. We're going to save this ash, and ideally we're not going to get it dirty. You're going to keep this ash separate. But the trick to making strong lye is we're going to use a combination of post oak and blackjack, and you're going to want to use like 20-30% green wood with the cured wood, and that gives you a stronger lye. You literally collect this ash, this clean ash, you put it into some sort of drum or barrel. A 5-gallon plastic barrel is your standard. That's what I see a lot. And you've drilled really small holes, like maybe 5/16 or smaller, 7/32 into the bottom of this, essentially creating a sieve or a filtration system. And so then you can put cold water over the ash, and now you're waiting for it to saturate. So it's gonna take some time. So we're gonna add water. So we're gonna leave like a 4-inch top at the barrel. We're gonna keep adding water and letting it go down until it starts coming out, and then we'll stop. And then we capture that effluent, the murky water that's sipped through there, essentially make ash tea, and we put that in barrels, in jars. And then you got to settle out your jars. So you're going to let it set for a couple of days, and the ash will settle down at the very bottom. And then you're going to take another clean jar, and you're going to take your initial jar that's settled and decant. So you're going to just gently pour the clear fluid off until it starts getting ashy, and you're going to stop. And then you got a can of some really dangerous stuff. We'll take the skin off the bone. It's I don't know what the pH on that is going to be, but it's going to be really high. The reason we made lye is because it when you treat corn with the lye, it will it dissolves the hull of the kernel. And so it will slough off. And so y'all have seen the big pounders, the big, I've got one now, I'll be bringing it. So you put the lye soaked corn that you've soaked overnight in there, and you're not pounding the corn, you're sloughing off that. So you're pushing that through the corn, and the corn is moving, and that friction causes the hull to slough off. And then you wash it out and dry it, and or cook it immediately because it's delicious. It's the best hominy you'll ever have. It has like a smoky nature to it that like agricultural lime doesn't provide in the can, because that would be the commercial approach. And the lye can last for years, if it's in a glass jar, the lid will rust and corrode, and I've got this really fancy Erlenmeyer flask with a stopper that was like $300 to keep my lye in, but I didn't buy it, I just inherited it from, oh shoot. But on accident. But I put it to use, so.
Well, we're excited and we look forward to that workshop too.
Yeah. And then we'll work out our planning times and get our rotation and everything laid out, because fall's the time to do that. So maybe we can do another class on where we actually do a year plan. So you bring photos of your area, you measure it out, before the class, and we can really figure out what your crop potential is going to be for that area. And because I need a lot of encouragement to do manual labor, and this is going to be more laborious, so I need to see some numbers to encourage me to get out there and do it.
All right, thank you. Yeah, any other closing questions here for a break?